All right, I think we're online right now. We're broadcasting live here. I'm Fabio Carvalho with James Hazlerig. Did I say it correctly, mister?
Pretty close, pretty close.
Pretty close. Today we have a special guest. James is going to talk about a very important and very interesting topic. It is not something that when we talk about hypnosis, sometimes people think that we'll only know those strategies and techniques to put people under a certain state. And some people even think about falling asleep. And that's not even close to reality what we live. There's so many other things around this topic and so much more experience that we can share around other correlated aspects that sometimes touch upon human mind. And Mr. James is an expert on so many interesting of those aspects. And today we're talking about autogenic training. Is that
autogenic training? Yeah.
The topic that you were gonna actually give us the pleasure to hear a little bit for?
Yeah, and really autogenic training and how I use it. It's should I just go ahead and launch into kind of explaining it? Sure. So autogenic training was invented actually in the 1930s by a medical doctor. He was a cardiologist, and he was tired of losing his patients. I mean, literally, his patients were dropping dead because they had heart disease. And back in the 1930s, there really weren't any good treatments to help people with heart disease. And he did recognize that almost all of them, their hearts were beating too fast. They were wearing themselves out. So he said, all right, people have to figure out a way to take conscious control of this unconscious automatic function of their hearts beating. So he developed a protocol, and it's not, he didn't think of it officially as hypnosis, although apparently he had some inspiration from hypnosis. But he developed a protocol for taking control of the body. Now, I don't work with people who have heart conditions necessarily. At least that's not what I address for them. But it turns out that the technique he developed has a lot of other applications. I originally learned this technique from Richard Nongard, who is the president and founder of the ICBCH. And of course, he originally learned it from a psychiatric nurse in a psychiatric hospital where he was working as an intern. And they would actually have the psychiatric patients go through this protocol because it increases self-control. Now, I stumbled onto what's really sort of my favorite application of it. And it's funny because it's not what it was meant for at all. I realized that it is really great for helping people who have insomnia, that inability to fall asleep. Because, you know, I get a lot of clients who are dealing with that inability to fall asleep. And almost all of them, I always ask, so what goes on? What's happening here? And sometimes it's not an autogenic training kind of thing that I need to help them with. For instance, I had a lady who had really severe hot flashes. And so okay, well, there's an approach to help with hot flashes. So that's what we did for her. But most of the clients that I work with have the problem that when they lie down to go to sleep, their mind just keeps running. And it's just, they talk about, you know, the hamster wheel, the chattering monkey mind that just won't shut up and won't let them sleep. And then and I know this really well because this used to be what I dealt with like on a nightly basis. And then they get caught up in really negative thinking, giving themselves some really bad suggestions because, you know, your self-talk is essentially a hypnotist affecting you at all times. So what ends up happening for a lot of people is, first off, they can't seem to get their mind to shut up so that they can go to sleep. And then their mind starts saying, oh my gosh, you really need to go to sleep. It's going to be really bad if you don't fall asleep. oh my gosh, it's all right. It's 2 o'clock in the morning. You have to be up at 6. Oh my gosh, you're only going to get 4 hours. You're going to feel terrible tomorrow. Oh man, well, I can't go to sleep. I just hate it when I can't go to sleep. Man, I can't go to sleep. And of course, hypnotists, we recognize what's happening there. It's an embedded suggestion. Just like the other day, Scott Sandland did a video where he was talking to people and said, now, I don't want you to buy your tickets to Hypno Thoughts Live now, right? And you know, he was doing that embedded suggestion. And so that's what ends up happening, is that people start suggesting to themselves that they can't fall asleep and that they're going to feel terrible the next day. And there's actually been some scientific studies that prove that if you believe that you slept poorly, you will feel worse and have poorer reflexes. Whereas if you believe that if you slept well, you will feel better during the day and have better reflexes. So the first thing to do is get away from that self-suggestion. Now the trick is, as we know as hypnotists, it's really hard to not think something, right? So you have to think something else. So what I do is I say, hey, I'm going to teach you this cool technique. It was invented by a heart doctor in the 1930s. And it's really great for helping people, even people who feel like they can't relax, to go into a sort of meditative state. And not by silencing the inner mind, but just or the inner voice, but by giving the inner voice something better to do. And sticking with it long enough that they enter into this peaceful meditative state. And you'll experience it here in my office, I usually say to them. And then I want you to know that even if you don't fall asleep, if you did this all night long, if you just kept practicing this all night long, because it's meditative, in the morning, you're going to be refreshed, ready to go, feeling great. So just set that frame in your mind. Okay, so here's the thing. I actually have no evidence that doing this all night long would lead to feeling great in the morning, because I've never managed to do it all night long. Because when I was suffering from insomnia, I said, okay, well, I'm awake anyway. Let's use this time to practice my autogenic training. So I would start going through this process, which I'll demonstrate for you in a minute. I'd start going through the process of autogenic training, and I would fall asleep and wake up in the morning feeling just great. So it's a little bit of a distraction, but that's good, because, as you know, it's impossible to not think something unless you think something else. So that's right. Yeah, so that's kind of how I stumbled into using autogenic training in this way.
This is pretty cool. And you know, as you described, it definitely seems like a framework that you build upon.
Yeah, you have to, in order to use it, you know, and that framework, of course, is what I, you know, stumbled onto learning about hypnosis and recognizing the role of self-hypnosis in insomnia. And so I feel like a big part of our job is to reframe, to give people a new way of looking at things, because when you look at things differently, they change. Or there's a fancy saying about that. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And so right. if you change the way that you're thinking about this experience of insomnia and stop catastrophizing it, making it worse and worse. And you know, the thing is that insomnia tends to snowball. It makes everything worse. In fact, I had a friend who he's a doctor of Chinese medicine. We would typically call him an acupuncturist, although they also do a lot with herbal remedies and things like that as well. And he said that when he was going through his training, one of his instructors said, if you can't help a person in any other way, get them sleeping right and pooping right. and I'm like, you know, it's true, because if you can't sleep and you feel terrible the next day, then you are much more susceptible to depression. You are more inclined to eat sugary foods. The leptin and ghrelin in your body, which are the hormones that tell you when you're hungry and when you've had enough to eat, get out of whack. So your eating gets messed up. And you then go to bed the next night worried, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to sleep? How am I going to feel? Oh gosh, boy, I hope I can sleep tonight. What if I can't sleep tonight, right? And you get into that thing. In fact, there's considerable evidence that that depression has a play in all of this. That because we know now that dreamless sleep is when your brain the brain cells actually contract. They push the neurotransmitters, the neurochemicals, out of the receptor sites, and that sort of channel between the brain cells, the synaptic channel, gets wider, and cerebral spinal fluid flushes all of those neurochemicals out of your brain, readying it for the next day. Apparently getting tired is basically all those receptor sites getting plugged up. So it's important to get deep dreamless sleep. The thing is that and that part is hard science, definitely. It's theorized. People don't quite understand dreams as well as they understand that physical thing happening. It's theorized that dreams are what you get when you have a lot to think about, a lot of experience during the day, either internal experience or external experience. So it's quite possible that the reason that depressed people can sleep a long time and wake up feeling really tired is that they have too much on their minds and they dream too much, forcing out the time for the deep dreamless sleep when their body would actually get to rejuvenate and feel better. So then they wake up and they're like a zombie. I had a roommate in college who slept 20 hours a day and then was like a zombie for the other 4 because he was just profoundly depressed. And he eventually did get better, thank goodness. But I think about that, and I think about, yeah, you know, and I've wrestled with depression, and I've had those times where I wake up exhausted. I'm like, oh gosh. So theoretically, that might be from dreaming too much. So I'm always going to make sure that along with the autogenic training, that I make sure I give people suggestions to have some lovely dreams, and to also have periods of deep dreamless sleep, and to wake up feeling great in the morning. So it's really critical, I think, that we're able to help people with insomnia.
Now, and there's another thing, right? In the component of it's almost a public health issue, if you think. Because if you think about it, you know, I was doing a research another day. It was not exactly about insomnia, but it was about you know, I was doing a correlation between sleep and what we consider as benefits of relaxation and hypnosis as for achieving you know, a different state of sleep, right, if you will, but primarily to produce melatonin. And one thing that I noticed was that in the United States alone, it was somewhere near to 15–20% of people that was just saying that they have like sleep problems, right?
Yeah.
A friend, he works in a hospital in Brazil, primarily with using hypnosis for pain management. In the same hospital, I know they have this department for sleep people with the sleep deprivation and things like that. And it is a big thing, right, James? It is a huge thing.
Yeah, I mean, just talking about there's so many people out there, and I mean, probably not a week goes by that I don't see a post on Facebook by somebody I know who says, "Oh my gosh, I just couldn't sleep. Ah, I hate it when I can't sleep." And I'll very often just, you know, kind of politely say, "Hey, you know, if only you knew a hypnotist who has helped a lot of people with that, he could probably help you out." Um, and you know, I don't want to run in and you know, NLP all over my friends, but I do, you know, tend to mention, hey, this can be helpful to you. And although this isn't necessarily the best business plan, I actually have a hypnosis recording that helps people get better sleep. And occasionally I'll just say, here, have it. I'll just send them the link. But a lot of times I get people who approach me and we'll do a 3-session program because I want to make sure that we've really got things under control. And a lot of times once they've got the sleep under control, then they're like, wow, you know, what else can we take care of? What else can you help me with? And they tend to be great referral sources. You know,
that's great. And it works quite well, right? When we have someone who experienced something that is bothering them, that is affecting them, and at the end of the day, they manage to overcome that, and then they realize that you were the source of that, that solution.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I mean, the thing is that, okay, so, you know, say somebody calls you up to get help with erectile dysfunction, they're probably not going to tell their friends. Right. You know, whereas there's no shame or stigma to not sleeping well. You know, it's a massive industry. Everybody accepts, oh yeah, sure, anything that's going to help you out, go ahead and use it. So yeah, it's really great to be able to help people out with this. So having kind of discussed it now, shall we do a little demonstration of autogenic training, just so you can get a flavor of what it is?
Absolutely.
All right. Sure. Yeah. Now, of course, we have to say, if you're listening to this while driving a car, please don't follow these directions. Please stop the recording right now. You know, and all of that, because it does tend to guide people into a really wonderful hypnotic state. The thing I love about it is that it never asks you to relax, because you get those people like, I can't relax. I'm like, great, you don't have to relax to do this. And it also really doesn't require you to visualize. And I'm a highly visual person. I love visualization, but sometimes you get that client who's convinced that they can't visualize, or convinced that they're not very good at visualization, or they're just a lot better with other senses. So it's very effective for them. It is basically a hypnotic induction, so you can use it to guide people into a hypnotic state. I'm just going to go ahead and take you through the basics of it so that you'll understand what's going on. Very simply, I'm going to describe a sensation at some part of your body. We'll start with the hands, and ask you to just keep affirming, keep repeating in your mind that you're feeling that sensation. Now, you might feel the sensation, or you might not, and that's okay, because the important thing is that you are learning to train your mind, learning to think in a particular way. So you approach it without any expectation of a result, just enjoying the process, recognizing that the journey is more important than the destination. So having said that, just take a nice deep breath and close your eyes down. Make sure you're in a position that you can maintain comfortably, and focus all of your attention on your hands. Notice how your hands feel right here in this moment. Notice the texture of the surface that your hands are touching. You might notice the temperature of your hands, or the weight of them. You might even notice that one hand feels a little bit heavier than the other, or maybe one hand feels lighter. One hand may feel warmer, or the other may feel cooler. And as you focus your attention on those hands, I'm going to ask you to start silently repeating a phrase or a sentence for me. And just keep repeating it in your mind as you focus on kind of a feeling of warmth in your hands, begin to say to yourself, my hands feel comfortably warm. My hands feel comfortably warm. And you can say it completely silently. You can whisper it. You could say it completely out loud, although it's not really any benefit to that. So just, my hands feel comfortably warm. My hands feel comfortably warm. And though you don't have to visualize to do this, you could imagine a color of warmth in the hands if it helps. You might also think about the kind of warmth that your hands would know if you were sitting next to a window on a sunny day and a beam of sunlight was warming those hands. Or if it was a colder day and you walked up to a fireplace or space heater and you warmed your hands. Or if you are someone who loves animals, if a cat or a dog lay down on your hands and you could feel their body warmth as you continue to repeat, my hands feel comfortably warm. My hands feel comfortably warm. Now, it's not important, like I said, how quickly or slowly your hands begin to actually feel comfortably warm. That might not happen the first time that you practice this, or even the second or the third or the fifth or the 15th. The important thing is that you're learning to focus your mind in a particular way. Now, you can shift your thoughts to a feeling of heaviness, noticing that your hands can feel heavy and saying to yourself, my hands feel comfortably heavy. My hands feel comfortably heavy, like the comfortable heaviness that you know if you sink into a bed at the end of a long, hard day. Or, again, if you have ever had a cat or a dog fall asleep on your hands, and you know that comfort as you say to yourself, my hands feel comfortably heavy. My hands feel comfortably heavy. Or if you've ever held a baby that fell asleep on your chest and its body goes completely loose, limp, and relaxed, my hands feel comfortably heavy. My hands feel comfortably heavy. And now you can combine those two sensations, letting comfort be implied, saying to yourself, my hands feel warm and heavy. 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 And as you repeat that in your mind, remember that it's not important how quickly or slowly your hands become warm or heavy or neither or both, but simply that you are focusing your mind on this experience, recognizing that it might not happen that you feel these sensations the first time or the 5th or the 15th or the 50th or the 500th, but that you are focusing your mind on this thought. My hands feel warm and heavy. My hands feel warm and heavy. Now, if at any point your mind drifts away from repeating that thought, my hands feel warm and heavy, then simply note whatever thought your mind chased and then refocus your attention on my hands feel warm and heavy. My hands feel warm and heavy. And don't feel bad if you think a few other thoughts, that's fine. The important thing is to realize you're doing it and focus your attention once again on your hands feeling warm and heavy. Now, you can shift your attention down to your feet, noticing how your feet feel, the textures around your feet, and begin affirming to yourself, my feet feel warm and heavy. 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 Continuing to repeat that in your mind, recognizing that it doesn't matter how quickly or slowly your feet become warm or heavy or neither or both, but instead that you are learning how to focus your mind in a particularly powerful and useful way. Recognizing that you may or may not feel the warmth or the heaviness or both on the first time or the 5th or the 50th or the 500th. And remembering that if your mind drifts away, you can simply release whatever thought it's been chasing and refocus your attention on the phrase we're repeating. My feet feel warm and happy. My feet feel warm and happy. Now, you can shift your attention to your arms, both arms and the shoulders and neck in between, saying to yourself, my arms feel warm and heavy. My arms feel warm and heavy. My arms feel warm and heavy. Now, I'm talking today to a number of hypnotists, and so I'm probably going to go through the protocol a little bit faster than I typically do, because all of you are excellent at absorbing knowledge. With a client, I might draw it out a little bit longer, and I might change it a little bit for each client. But you're easily understanding the principle that you focus in on a body part and a sensation. Now I will also give the suggestion that if you practice this technique all night long, that even if you don't end up falling asleep at any point in it, my arms feel warm and happy. My arms feel warm and happy. That if you practice it all night, that in the morning you will emerge to regular consciousness feeling magnificent, refreshed, and rejuvenated, because it is a meditative, hypnotic technique. Now, you can shift your attention to your legs and your feet and actually your whole body from the waist on down. My lower half feels warm and happy. 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 You can shift your attention to your right arm. My right arm feels warm and happy. My right arm feels warm and happy. My right arm feels warm and happy. You can shift your attention to your left leg. My left leg feels warm and happy. My left leg feels warm and happy. My left leg feels warm and happy. You can shift your attention to your right leg. My right leg feels warm and happy. My right leg feels warm and happy. My right leg feels warm and happy. Shift your attention to your left arm. My left arm feels warm and happy. My left arm feels warm and happy. My left arm feels warm and happy. Shift your attention to your breath. My breath is deep and even. 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 Shift your attention to your heart. My heartbeat is strong and steady. My heartbeat is strong and steady. My heartbeat is strong and steady. Shift your attention to your forehead. My forehead is calm and cool. 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 Shift your attention to your whole body. My body is cool and floating. 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 And just understand that tonight and every night when you fall asleep, all you have to do is begin practicing this with the understanding that even if you practice it all night long and never fall asleep, you'll feel magnificent in the morning. And yet it's very likely that your thoughts will drift away and you'll bring them back to this. And at some point, your body and mind will probably drift off into a beautiful, sweet sleep, where you'll have an appropriate amount of beautiful, empowering dreams, as well as periods of deep, dreamless sleep to rejuvenate your brain and body. And that you'll awaken at the appropriate hour, feeling magnificent, refreshed, rejuvenated, ready to have a fantastic day in which you live life with a hopeful heart, a peaceful mind, and a playful spirit, as my friend Michael Elmer often said. So, for right now, we're going to bring this experience to a close. When I count to 5 and I reach 5, that will be your cue to return to full external awareness, feeling fantastic, refreshed, and rejuvenated as if you've had a 9-hour nap and a 7-hour massage. 1, getting ready to come back, feeling fantastic, knowing that you've had powerful, transformative hypnosis. 2, knowing that anytime you're on the road today, whether walking, driving, or riding a bike, you're totally alert and aware of your surroundings. 3, becoming aware of your fingers and toes and the tip of your nose and all points in between, fully back in your body, feeling great in your own skin. 4, almost back, feeling like you've had a 9-hour nap and a 7-hour massage, like you've washed your eyes with cool, clear spring water. And 5, open your eyes, wide awake, feeling great, like a brand new person.
Absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and it's such a simple technique. And look, I'm not doing it exactly as Dr. Schultz did it. Dr. Schultz was Austrian and therefore very organized and process oriented, and he was dealing with life and death matters like heart disease. So he created an 8-week protocol that is very detailed and complicated and all that. And in fact, I understand that you can actually purchase that full 8-week protocol from Richard Dongard. I haven't. I haven't gone through learning that whole thing. Instead, I found that this kind of shorter, easier version accomplishes what we need to accomplish for a lot of clients. So a lot of times I'll record, in fact, I have a recording of that alone that I'll just give to a client, but I'll encourage them to realize that you don't have to use the recording. You can do this on your own. And in fact, just yesterday, kind of why this is on my mind, I had a client come in for his follow-up, and he had some severe insomnia issues. He'd had a very traumatic experience several months ago that had kind of destroyed his sleep, and he'd been through a lot of counseling, and he said, I feel like I've gotten over that traumatic experience, but my sleep is still just so messed up. So I said, okay, well, let's go ahead and use this. If we don't get the result we want, we can do a little trauma clearing stuff. But let's just go ahead and take a shot with this. Well, first off, he fell asleep right there in my office while we were practicing it. And I said, that's okay. Here's a recording of it. And just practice it every night. And when he came back in, it was about 3 weeks before he came back in, and he said, it's amazing. And I mean, I could see it the moment he walked into the office. He was just full of energy. And he said, man, I've been telling everybody about it. I usually don't get past my hands. I get to the hands and boom, I'm out. He said there was one night when I had a little bit of trouble, and so I just pulled out the recording, and sure enough, before I knew it, I was asleep. So it's really, of course, as a hypnotist, it's incredibly gratifying when somebody has gotten a great result like that in a single session. And it's really great to have a good approach for something that so many people deal with.
That's right. And I mean, passing through the experience, because, as you were explaining and giving a clear explanation, I was under the impression that whenever I was actually having my thoughts drifting a bit, the way that you actually conducted, so therefore I could have my attention and my focus back to, let's say, my hands, feet, or whatever, my body, that definitely facilitate, that definitely helps to refocus pretty quickly. And I felt that the sensation and the warm and coolness of you know, that I was actually experiencing in the part of the body, I think that helped me also to keep my focus and attention to it. So
yeah, and you know, that actually, so that aspect of it is something that I kind of borrowed into autogenic training from mindfulness training. A basic mindfulness exercise is pick out something to focus on. A lot of times they use the breath, and focus on that breath, begin labeling it in and out, in and out. And then anytime you have another thought, you kind of label that thought like, oh, that's a thought of the past, or that's a thought of the future. And then you label it and then shift your attention back to your breath or the spot on the wall or whatever it is you're focusing on for mindfulness training. And the thing is, a lot of times the wording that mindfulness instructors use is release that thought. Well, the thing is that, yes, you're sort of releasing it, but sometimes people are like, well, I still hear whatever it is. And I'm like, shift your attention away from it. Just shift the attention back. And I get clients also who come in who say, oh, I have a lot of trouble focusing. You know, I try to read, I try to study, and I just can't seem to focus on things. I get distracted so easily, right? I have ADOS, attention deficit, ooh, shiny, right? So a mindfulness exercise, which this one becomes, is also very useful for teaching people how to stay focused on something. So it's just kind of wild to me how simple it is, and yet how many applications it has and how effective it is.
I love the way that you know, the adaptation and the way that you use the protocol in your own way. I've used the training with particularly with students and for learning. Of course, more close to the original suggestibility approach, which is more like heavy and therefore you get that sensation of relaxation, but it's a little bit different because although you achieve that relaxation, here I felt that there was a little bit more, because if, especially, you know, as you were saying, insomnia, there's no way out. You get into sleep anyways, right?
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught in that loop. And so I think it's really useful to kind of relieve the pressure of falling asleep for the people who are like, why can't I fall? You just relieve the pressure from it. And likewise, you know, with the hands feeling warm and heavy, you sometimes encounter that client who's like, are they warm and heavy yet? Well, no, they're not warm and heavy yet. And they're giving themselves a suggestion that it's not going to happen. It's kind of like if you're trying to bake a cake and you keep checking on it every minute, you know, opening up the oven, you let the heat out and the cake never bakes. So that's one reason I like to just relieve that pressure, that your hands don't have to become warm and heavy right off the bat. That doesn't mean it's not working. So, and what I found is that almost always afterwards I say, so what was that like? You know, that's almost my standard question. So what was that experience like for you? And I always make sure it's a very neutral kind of question. They can give me any sort of feedback. And almost all of them say, you know, I actually felt my hands getting warm and heavy. I'm like, yeah, see how good you are. Some people don't get that the first time, but you have a very powerful mind. So, yeah, it's fun.
So James, one thing, and we're just approaching here some time already. I wanted to get something from you. wanted to make sure that our meetup members here from the NGH North Texas, as well as for my audience that is watching this, or the ones that are listening to the podcast, so therefore that they are able to reach out to you. Though I'm going to share all the links and connections, when they reach out to you, what things that they can expect out of you that they do not know yet, but they will whenever they do it?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's a good question. Well, if all they've watched is this, they might be surprised to know that teaching autogenic training isn't really my specialty. The big thing that I typically help people learn about is actually metaphor and storytelling. I do a lot of work with that kind of thing. In fact, I have a Facebook group called the Order of Spellbinding Storytellers, and we share information with each other about storytelling and how to use it in hypnosis. In fact, that's what I talked about the last time that I joined your chapter there. And so I actually have a storytelling podcast as well, which is called the Hypnotic Storytelling Podcast. And I decided to keep that name nice and simple. And I think you can actually find stuff about it at hypnoticstorytellingpodcast.com. Now I'm working on a course specifically in hypnotic storytelling. It's not done yet, so if you happen to stumble onto the link to buy it, don't yet. But do connect with me. Do join the Facebook group. I also one of the other areas that I'm really fascinated with and excited by is the power of unconditional laughter. That's when you laugh because you decide to, rather than because something tickles your funny bone and you're laughing at a joke or something like that. Laughter is something people don't take seriously, right? But it's actually a very powerful tool. So I wrote a little book, and it's called The Little Book of Laughnosis. You can find it on Amazon. And I actually created an online course along with Dave Berman, who is a big laughnotist person. And I'm trying to remember the exact title we came up with for that, but it was something like the online Laughnosis training course, where we just walk you through some exercises, give you some new insights and things that aren't in the book. So those are the main things that I'm up to. And honestly, I have to give props to one of my favorite teachers. I mentioned him a couple times, Richard Nongard. He's the one who introduced me to a lot of these things. I feel like any hypnotist, I've kind of mixed and matched and applied my special sauce. But I really have to give props to him and the work that he does. He is hosting a conference in February in Las Vegas. I think it's the ICBCH Winter Conference. So it focuses on change work. It doesn't go into like stage hypnosis and street hypnosis and entertainment. There's nothing wrong with that stuff. And of course, there are plenty of conferences that do focus on those things. So he kind of focuses in on that one specialty. So anyway, those are some of the things that I'm involved with and up to. And I do have a YouTube video actually where I guide people through autogenic training with another twist that I pulled in from somewhere else into it because it's kind of fun. So please track me down, check me out, and I'd love to help everybody who sees this to become better hypnotists.
I appreciate that. I'll make sure that I share all the links, all the information,
Sure.
How to reach out to you. So therefore, everyone in the meetup group and as well as in the audience that are watching or listening to this, they're able to do it. So I'm very happy for this opportunity. And as you were doing right now, all right, so you were demonstrating your gratitude to Richard. Richard, it's an awesome human being. And I will, right now, what I'm going to actually do it is, express my gratitude for your time with us, whoever is watching and learning from you today or through this experience. I was actually going through the experience myself, so therefore I could actually, experience in deep whatever you were actually talking. So, and I would say it was a great experience. So I thank you very much, James, for joining us. And once again, thank you for being I would even say that you were now a member of our meetup group here.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I'm honored. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's wonderful what you're doing. It's wonderful to bring people together and give them opportunities. An awful lot of hypnotic learning, I think, takes place in these, little local groups, especially where people can get together face to face and practice with each other. It's good to know the hypnotists in your area. Sometimes I've even had like a hypno play date, where I'll meet up with another hypnotist and we're like, okay, I saw this, let me practice it with you, because it can be very isolating. It can be very lonely when you're just sitting in an office, working with clients day after day, and you're like, well, I know this works. I haven't experimented with this, so it's really great that you're hosting a meetup kind of thing. And I guess if there's anybody in the Austin area, let me mention that I host a meetup in Austin, which is the Austin Hypnosis Practice Group. You can find it literally on Meetup.
Awesome. So James, once again, so thank you very much. I think now it's time to just say thank you for watching, and thank you for listening to this. The invitation is always open. Our meetup group here in Dallas, same very place, and every third Saturday of each month, except December's, because December's people will get into vacation and all that. And for you that is willing to learn more about hypnosis, reach out. We'll have different information to share with you, whatever you are, which stage you are in terms of getting knowledge and experience. And thank you very much. Thank you, James.
Thank you.